Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to the Pelt Music Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Marisa and the Moths, who released their second album, Whatever Doesn't Kill You, last May. It's a fantastic album that is well worth your time, so I'm looking forward to talking to Marisa all about it and everything else that they've got coming your way, including a headline tour next month. Before then, though, it is the usual reminders from myself. If you would, do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you could, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Marisa Rodriguez from Marisa and the Moths to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on this evening. First question from me always is just simply, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Just plodding along. It's definitely feeling very wintry at the moment, but we had a few shows the other day, so that kind of like brought my spirits up again. Shows always do that for me. I get a bit sad in between, but yeah, I'm excited now because tour has officially begun.
Absolutely. You've kickstarted 2025 in the best possible way. You've just hit Winter's End, which I know is a great festival to get on and play at. So, I mean, that must have been a great way to blow off the Christmas cobwebs, as it were.
Definitely. I mean, it was an absolutely packed gig. I think a couple of thousand people there. So definitely blew off the cobwebs. And then we had a couple other shows that weekend as well. We played a headline show in Cheltenham, and then we went and did a little support acoustic slot for our friends at a show in London. So yeah, it was a really, really fun and varied weekend, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely sounds it. And yeah, like I say, great way to kick off 2025, which follows on from a really impactful year for the band. 2024 was a great year. You know, you released your second album, Whatever Doesn't Kill You, which I will plug throughout this podcast. I can't help myself. Listeners' first one, obviously, is if you haven't for some reason checked out that album, is definitely go and do that. Obviously, headline tour from yourselves last year as well, getting out there and playing those songs live. So, I mean, next question really is it was May the album came out, and obviously you got to play headline shows later in the year. How did you find the reaction to that new music?
Oh, it was incredible. To be honest, it was better than we thought. I think you kind of build it up in your head, especially as it's the second album. I think a lot of bands feel like there's a lot of pressure when you release your second album because the first album you can take your time with it, right? And
Yeah,
there's less pressure because it's new, and I think people are more forgiving when it's new and it's your first thing that you've done. But once you've kind of made that statement of this is who I am or we are, if you're a band, you have to follow it up with something better. They expect
yeah,
more. And it was super personal for me as well, that what the album was about. So I think that also played into my insecurities about finally unleashing it into the world. But yeah, honestly, the response we had was so positive and so supportive. Everybody sort of said that knew us from before that they think it's better than the first album, that they still love both and whatever, but they think it was a step up for us and that we've kind of matured as a band, which is everything you want to hear, kind of thing. It was also really nice to play some new songs as well after, like, play them live after kind of keeping them under wraps while we finished mixing them, because we really did take our time a little bit with everything that went on with the lockdown and all of that. But yeah.
yeah. Lockdown, God, yeah. When I first started this podcast, we were coming out of lockdown, so I talked about it quite a lot. But I desperately try and avoid it these days because it's just such a horrible time. But
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad you touched on obviously the pressure of the second album because I mean it is quite a famous thing, isn't it? Yeah, that difficult second album for musicians. And as you touched on, the reason I always think that is because you have so much time with that first one, and again, there's not that sort of level of expectation. So it is, really probably the hardest album to make almost because from there on, it's like, well, you've been there, you've done that, you just progress and hopefully you sound more. But that second album is difficult. Did you take anything from the recording of the first album and say to yourselves, we want to do that differently this time around? Did you purposely change up anything to challenge yourselves?
Absolutely. There are quite a few things actually. So the first thing that comes to mind were the drums. So in the first album, I really felt like I was, don't get me wrong, I love our first album and it was everything it could possibly be at the time with the tools that we had and the knowledge we had, kind of thing. But with the second album, I really wanted to capture that raw energy in a better way. And the way that we did that was actually to we got the takes as good as we possibly could and only made the smallest edits that we could possibly make so that it felt real, because a lot of modern music, and it's something that we did more so with our first album, you know it, it gets quantized within an inch of its life, meaning that it's just basically tightened timing wise, so much so everything sounds the same. You can't tell one drummer from the next, and quite frankly it's boring. Like there's no energy for me personally. I love rock music and all the classics, because all the classic rock bands, because of how the energy feels, so yeah, I really wanted to hone in on that, and I'm really happy to say that I think we achieved that. But I also learned some new vocal techniques. I taught myself to scream and then got some lessons to kind of refine it as well, and kind of pushed myself melodically as well. So there was a lot going on there, but I feel as a band where the vocals are quite prominent and an important part of the storytelling, that I had a job to do in the sense of upping my game as well as the songwriting and stuff. And then also with the songwriting aspect, I just really wanted to push myself out of the box of whatever the first album was and just still be true to the sound that we'd kind of stated that we are, but to develop that and maybe just try some new things. And some of the chord progressions on album two, I would say, are probably weirder in places, but also some of it's poppier, some of it's heavier. It's a real journey, but yeah, it's definitely in line with album one, but in a lot of ways different as well. And I think it's a step in the right direction of where we want to go as a band. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
most things, the most important things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved hearing all that because I mean, it is a real journey that you're on, a real journey of an album, and yeah, I love when bands are willing to challenge themselves and sort of like push yourself, as you termed it, to see what you can achieve. And the bit I picked up at the start on as well is where you talked about, how everything's so quantized, and obviously, like, you can't tell drummers apart. I mean, music is not perfect by nature, in my opinion, like, especially rock music. I mean, I grew up
Yeah.
a lot of the bands that I love. Obviously, I love their albums, but I used to listen a lot more to live albums. I mean, like I mean, the one that's jumping out at me now is like AC/DC Live at Donington. But I mean, I'm thinking albums of the Who, and even like lesser rocker, like not so heavy music like REM. I used to just replay these like live albums again and again, and just like I loved how the songs were different to the record, because it's a snapshot that that recording only happened once, as it were, on that live show. And yeah, it's a great way really to sort of perform. And with that leads into sort of one of the questions that I had jotted down is I was going to ask you, did the songs adapt to the stage as you expected them to? And obviously, bearing in mind that you did record these with more of a kind of getting that energy, that live energy in there. I expect you actually did sort of have that directly in mind. So did they, when you got out and you played those shows, perform, the songs themselves as you expected them to?
Yeah, so that's tricky. I think there's a couple layers to it, especially as I sort of said, that some other songs are poppier, some of them are heavier. And actually, I realized that what I didn't mention before is one of the things that we did with album two that we didn't do so much of in album one was look at extra effects and some electronic layering and things, just to kind of elevate the songs and modernize them slightly, whilst also capturing that live energy within the instrumental recording. So yeah, the more organic, raw sounding songs I would definitely say came across how I imagined them to live. But the ones that maybe had the extra layers that we hadn't had previously, they were more of experimental for us when we were kind of making that into a live arrangement. So an example of that would be something like our recently released single Devil. That was the one that probably got reworked the most in terms of how it was sounding produced, because it was recorded with a lot more instrumentation than what it ended up with, let's put it that way. And I stripped out some of the organic drums actually and replaced parts of it with electronic drums so that it helped kind of progress the song as a journey. And then live we were like, well, are we gonna play the drum part again on the actual drums, or will there be a little bit where it is just coming through on a track, you know? So it was a real kind of trial and error sort of situation. We got there though, and we're really happy with it. And we actually added extra sections to certain parts of songs, and added more electronics for that for the live shows as well. But so just to be clear though, my vocals, my new vocals, all of our guitars and things are live. It's just we were using track anyway because I have a lot of backing vocals and the boys can't hit those notes, unfortunately. So it was necessary, but it's also meant that the things that we wouldn't play live, like ambient pads and interlude kind of music, things like that, we have it there as well. So it's adding another layer to our live performances and kind of thickening it out a little bit, which is really nice. um so yeah, so there's that side, and then there's the sort of acoustic side of the live shows that we do, because I always do a song on my own. Liam actually gets up and does a cover or one of his songs as well at the same sort of point in the show, just to break it up a little bit. But that I do just usually completely on my own, just to give it a different, like give the show a bit of a breather, because there's a lot of noise otherwise. Like our shows are long, so yeah, it's very varied. I think you should just all just come to a show and then you can just see for yourselves.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I say I do plug a lot on this podcast, and I certainly am gonna, be pushing listeners to go and test that theory, to go and obviously see what these shows are like. And I love the sort of crossover actually, because we have two podcasts, and on the other podcast we have a set feature called Setlist Science, and we often talk about the structure of set lists and obviously how to make them ebb and flow correctly. And obviously you've touched on that here, with obviously that, you take that moment to do a track or two acoustically, and so it structures the set list, breaks it up, creates elements. And I'm guessing, by the fact that you've really introduced that, you are someone that does think about set lists in that way, and thinks, right, we need to make this work. It is obviously, for me, such an important thing.
Definitely. It's something we've really honed in on over time. We weren't good at that to begin with, but and I feel that when we started out, it was more like we're gonna play these songs and we picked an order, but maybe they didn't flow super well into each other. But now we think about it as a show, the set list and the way that you link all the songs together, the talking points, all of those things are so important for keeping the energy kind of consistent, and for it to be kind of more energetic at the start and the end. I think that's definitely really important, but it needs to be a bit of a journey, because if it's all just like pow pow pow, people just, it's too much. You've got to, especially over a longer set, make sure that you have some breathing space. If you're doing a shorter set though, a festival, it's like half an hour, 40 minutes, you play all of your big songs because you need to get people's attention. So that's a different kettle of fish. But for the longer sort of headline shows, it's really important, I think, to have those moments of breathing points. But yeah, we're still trying to refine what we're doing and change it up, and kind of learning as we go, I guess. But yeah, the good feedback recently, though, actually,
Yeah.
from our reviews and things, people have actually mentioned how they felt the energy was good and it was consistent. So it meant a lot to kind of hear that after putting in a lot of work into it.
Yeah, vindication, absolutely. And yeah, I love to hear it because I do love to see bands that actually self-aware and are willing to learn and develop. And obviously, it shines that you're so keen to like learn and progress. Something of a sponge, I guess, at the moment at this point in your career, and looking at what you can adapt and take on. And I mean, growth is obviously something that came across in the album for me as well. Obviously, lyrically, you talk a lot of the songs. There's an element of your own growth as a person that sort of comes across on some of the songs. And one of those is, you touched on it. Obviously, the latest single I was going to ask you about is Devil, that has just come out. We've just had it on our playlist. So again, listeners, another plug. Go and go and have a listen to Devil, and check that out. Obviously, with Devil, what can you tell us about the track? What does the song mean to you?
Yeah, so it's funny actually. Some fans have said, "Oh, is it about this?" But I've shocked them when I've told them what it's really about. And to be honest, I unless people ask me, I tend not to go out and say too often what the songs are about if I want it to be open to interpretation, because I feel that's what music should be. However, having said that, sometimes knowing what the meaning is, it can be really helpful to people. So yeah, anyway, that was a weird intro into telling you what the song was about. um so it's actually about falling in love again after you had got really hurt, and didn't think you would, or you wouldn't allow yourself to, but it's kind of like it's happening and I can't stop it, but maybe that's okay. And it's that journey of acceptance, I suppose. It represents new beginnings, kind of thing. So that's why it's also placed towards the end of the album, because what doesn't kill you, the actual journey of it, is meant to represent the process of grief. Because I feel like when a relationship breaks down, whether that is an abusive one or not, which for me it was, but I don't think it really matters. It still is like you're losing someone in a similar way to when someone dies, in a way, except
Yeah.
they're still there. And you go through all these processes, all the processes of grief, and it's kind of, it ebbs and flows. It's non-linear. One day you could be feeling like you're making progress, and then the next day it feels like you're 10 steps back again. And but eventually, with time, you will heal. You'll learn to live with what you went through, and it will teach you something, and you will eventually open up again to new experiences and new love if you let yourself. So it's kind of what the conversation is. And it's also like a, hey Marisa, I think you're being your own worst enemy by trying to stop yourself from being happy, or pretending like that wouldn't make you happy, and you're just lying to yourself, kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with the sentiment you had at the start around, songs being open to interpretation, because I think the best songs always are. But I also think it's when they're relatable, it just helps to obviously ingrain them with the listener. And I mean, everyone, I think I've said it on this podcast before, but I mean, everyone lives different lives. There's not a lot that ties people together, and that's one of the benefits of life. It would be boring if we're all the same. But one of the things that does, like, everyone experiences grief at some point in their life. Everyone will experience grief. So obviously,
Yeah.
themes like that coming across in music can be so helpful to people. And yeah, fantastic track, fantastic album, and
Thank
definitely
you.
listeners, as I say, check them out. As I want to push the listeners in the direction of as well. All of your music videos. So I'm a massive music video geek. Grew up with, Krang, Scuzz, MTV.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly. I love music videos, but it's such a dying art, and I hate when I interview an act on the podcast and there's no music videos for me to talk about. I'm like, oh man. Well,
Have you got
obviously,
too many?
there's no such thing as too many music videos. Absolutely not. But you have got, I could list off. I could talk to you about any particular video, and have a great time doing it. I mean, obviously, Devil is your latest video, so listeners need to check that out. But actually, I'm going to pinpoint a different one for us to talk about today, then, and that
Oh,
is
yeah.
Just Like Me, because one of the things that I love in music videos is a bit of rain, a bit of
Me
yeah.
too. Oh, it's my first rain shoot. I was so excited.
And that's going to be the crux of my question, really, is what was the experience like? Because I always think it looks so cool, but it must be cold. I don't know. Just yeah, what was it
So,
like?
so right. I don't know if you watched another one of our music videos, but I did an underwater scene in a music video for If You Knew. Uh, that was freezing. Oh my God. Like the water going into it's hot, but then you come out and you're fully wet. You know, every part of you is wet. So when you hit the outside air, and it was in what was like kind of like a warehouse type building, it's freezing. However, with the rain, it was a gradual wetting of my body and hair. And it was really warm. I think they said they heat it up to 40 degrees. So obviously it's gonna get a bit cooler as it's falling onto you. But it was really nice when I was stood in the rain. I didn't actually want to get out, but I had to a couple of times to sort out my makeup because it started running a bit. And obviously does get in your eyes. I thought that that would be a lot worse because again, and If You Knew underwater video shoot, my eyes were stinging. In fact, I had a nosebleed from the impact of falling back into the water to try and get the right shot. We did it one too many times, and I had to keep wiping my nose to get the blood off and then go again. I couldn't see for 3 days straight, but the rain was very pleasant. The rain, I was fine a few hours later. It was quite, I would just say that I think maybe because of temperature changes, it does make you quite tired. So I was really tired the next day. But it's kind of awesome. I felt like a kid just like rolling around in puddles, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it always amazes me the things that people do to capture like great shots for videos. And I say Rain's one of the ones that sort of comes up quite a bit because it does just look really, really good. But you know, underwater as well. I mean, absolutely amazing. Is there anything that you've got in your head that you'd love to do for a music video if budget wasn't an issue? You know, anything that would be a dream video for you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few things because, like you, I'm a music video geek, and I want to do it all. The first thing that came to my head was I want to go on a plane. I want to do a video on a plane, or do it some cool places. We haven't done the desert thing yet. I definitely want to do a desert themed music video. I probably would have done it already for one of the songs on album two if we'd had a budget, but um, hopefully our time will come for a desert music video and maybe something, yeah, again, just like extreme weather. It's like something in the snow, in a really snowy country. Oh God, there's so many different things. I also love movies in general. Like I think it's probably my second love is film. So yeah, I love the creativity that comes with creating music videos and bringing kind of the song's meaning to life a bit more. And I almost feel like, and you probably would agree with this, when you can hear a song and then you watch the video and it kind of connects with you in a different way and
Absolutely.
one might make you love it more, right? Because I also came home from school every day when I was in my teens, and it was just watch music videos for hours, and it was the same things a lot of the time. But it was I don't know why it's a dying art. I don't know why it's not the same thing that we used to do, but I guess they're doing it on TikTok now and Insta Reels. It's just they're not full blown videos all the time. They're just 30 seconds instead
Yeah.
of low budget videos instead.
Yeah, which just isn't the same, is it? Yeah, like you say, I used to, get home from school or even before school, watch it, and it's such a big influence. Like I say, you connect more with the band, with the artist and with the song. And I mean, so many times I remember looking at a video and going, yeah, well, that's my next hairstyle, or yes, I want a jacket like that, or yeah, and it would
Yeah.
influence like your style and your life really. For me anyway. Music videos, absolutely passionate about them, and we'll be featuring. Just like me over on our next Full Pelt TV that we do to highlight some music videos as well. So that's
Amazing.
yeah,
Thank you.
going to be really, really good. And obviously on to the main thing that's coming up for yourselves now, the headline tour. Obviously starting in March, it stretches into April. Like lots of weekend dates, Friday nights, Saturday nights, which always works really, really well. I love to see bands now targeting those for tours because it does obviously help to get the punters through the door, as it were. So I encourage listeners to head along to these shows. Absolutely, they really need to. are you obviously excited again to get out and play these shows?
So excited. It like I kind of said at the start, like I get a bit sad when we're not touring or not creating kind of thing. It's well, which is most of the time, luckily, but there was a bit of the period after Christmas. Like we needed a few weeks off at the end of last year. Like I did nearly 100 shows, so I was actually really tired. But you get a few weeks off, and I'm like, oh, now what do I do? And don't get me wrong, I had lots and lots of work to do, but I just miss everyone. There's a lot of kind of as a musician, and you're not just a musician, are you, when you're running a band? You're doing all the other jobs that people don't see behind closed doors. Like you're an administrator, you're a social media manager, you're an accountant, you're an organizer, like and a creator. Like you do all of these things. Um, so it can be exhausting. And also, I'm kind of just making up my own job title most of the time and just saying, these are the things I need to do. And yes, yes, yes. But there's no one telling me that I'm doing a good job most of the time or saying that it made them feel good that I did it. If that makes sense, I don't get the positive reassurance. So when we go and do the touring and I get to meet fans and, see them enjoying themselves and hear it from their lips, that's what I live for, it's why I'm doing it. I do it to connect with people and to help people. And that's what makes me feel like I'm doing a good job kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm this will be the last of the UK tour dates that we're going to be doing for a while though, I should just mention, at least full band. Because I need to get back writing again if we have any chance of getting another album finished because tour is so all absorbing. Like I can't think outside of tour, but it's a lot of work and you can't really get much done in between on a few days off here and there. You're just prepping for the next show. So yeah, it'll be nice to kind of go to that next creative phase again. And I'm just really excited for these shows though. It's going to be a big party. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that has whetted the appetite of everyone listening and they're going to pop along. The best way for them to obviously find the dates as well as your website, social media. I always like to give out the social handles. Obviously, like you say, you have to wear so many hats nowadays, and obviously, like social media manager, one of them. So again, listeners, if you can go and follow the band on social media, that's the best place to stay up to date with Marissa and the Moths, which is literally your handle on Instagram and Facebook, which is really helpful, and
Hmm.
on X, which I'm getting better at calling X and not Twitter now, but. Yeah,
Ugh.
exactly. It's a bit of a cesspit nowadays,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
still tend to give it out. It's Marissa underscore Moths. I give it out today because
yeah.
I love an underscore. Sometimes I have four different social handles to give out, or five or whatever, and it's just like, wow, I guess it can be a bit tenuous to read them out. But yours are pretty simple, so they'll flash up on the screen. And obviously, listeners do head over, follow Marissa and the Moths on social media. Pop to one of the shows if you can, because absolutely they're going to be worthwhile. Yeah, you're also playing a number of festivals. In the summer. Stillhouse in particular, I noticed, which is a fantastic
Twice
festival over in Wales.
actually.
Wow.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I'm singing with Sophie Lloyd as well in their band.
Yes.
So we'll be doing the Muff set, and then I think it's on the Friday, and then I'm doing Sophie's set on the Saturday. It might be the other way around, but yeah, it's going to be crazy. Everyone just keeps saying that the weather might be dodgy, but I think I've heard so many good things about what good vibes that festival is. So really excited for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Hell of a festival, listeners. If you are heading there, two sets there to check out from Marissa, absolutely. And I always, as we're talking about live music, just like to ask for you to give a shout out to an independent venue because obviously we talk about different hats and the industry struggles. Obviously, grassroots venues are struggling, and I love to do little bits to put a spotlight on venues. So, Marissa, if I was to ask you, obviously, to give a shout out to a music venue, where would you give a shout out to?
Oh, there's so many really amazing independent music venues that we've had the honor of playing. The one that kind of sticks to the front of my mind straight away is probably the Queen's Hall in Nuneaton. Um, mainly because those guys have been absolute legends to us. We do our pre-production days there. We've got a show coming up there actually as well, and we did one a few years back as like a stripped gig, which was like a one-off thing on my birthday, and there's some other cool stuff that went on, kind of on the lead up to the album coming out. So yeah, they treat us like family there, and they put so much effort into um, making that place really welcoming for bands, and they really look after you when you're there, and it doesn't matter who you are, they're just amazing, and they do it all out of the kindness of their heart. But to be honest, there are quite a lot of venues out there like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love those guys. I'm actually going to be doing, we haven't announced it yet because it's getting announced I think on Monday at 10 a.m. But I am going to be joining a couple of bands. I'm just trying to get the poster here. Bear with me 1 second. Um, so do you know Kira Mack? Have you heard of Kira
Yes.
Mack?
Yes.
So yeah, Kira, she invited me to come and do a performance to help her with a venue that she's trying to save that's at risk of being shut down right now. So it's called The Rigger in Stoke-on-Trent. And so me and Liam are going to go up and do a little acoustic set just to help him out, kind of thing. But I love that she's doing that and
Amazing. Yeah.
putting that together for them, because we're all in it together. The music industry is actually a really small place, and if we look out for each other, we can do anything, right? And also, just as a thing, I just want to make a point that I've really noticed the trend, and it's not just our band that's kind of been hit by it, but a lot of other bands that I know, where people since lockdown are leaving buying tickets to go to independent venue events to last minute, so much so that these events are getting cancelled because they can't afford to open their doors without knowing that they're going to be able to cover their costs because they're struggling so much. And it's one thing for a band to have to move a date because there's a lot of things going on there. Obviously, you don't want to look bad, but maybe your hotel wasn't refundable. Maybe
Yeah.
it wasn't refundable for the fans that did pre-order the tickets earlier on. But yeah, it's kind of killing some of these venues, guys. So if you enjoy seeing shows at independent venues and you're gonna go, just book it earlier because it helps everybody out, and it will help keep the music industry scene in the UK, which is so amazing, over here alive. So yeah, fight the fight.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's something I have mentioned on quite a few of these podcasts now. The two big ones I always pull out of the bag are, yeah, book tickets in advance and pre-order music, new music albums from bands that are putting out because it makes such a difference. If you know you're
Really
gonna
does.
go, if you know you're gonna buy that album, just get it done, get it in the bank. Obviously I know that times are tough, but like it's yeah, it is so valuable. I saw another great act have to cancel a tour this week actually. That was so disappointing to see them have to cancel it, and they were really open and honest about the reasons why. And it was
So
like
expensive. Yeah.
it is so difficult to get out and play shows, so we need to support everyone when they do. And yeah, other ways just to finish this off that fans can support you. I noticed you're on Patreon as well,
Yeah.
which whenever I can talk about that on this podcast as well, because again, it's such a great way to not just support the acts. Of course, it is about some financial support for bands, but the biggest thing I think fans will get from it is the ability to connect. We talk about music videos coming home from school and watching, I don't know, Green Day, Foo Fighters, or any band, on a music video on TV. You didn't have the ability to connect with that band, whereas technology these days has given us like so many avenues where we can actually connect directly with artists, and Patreon do it really, really well. So I hope obviously your experience of it has been beneficial as well.
Absolutely. I actually started my account back in lockdown, and it wasn't something that I thought I'd ever do, to be honest, because I don't think I really understood it, but a few friends of mine had their own accounts, and I kind of saw how it was helping them, and it was desperate times. I was one of the unfortunate people that didn't get any help from the government because I actually had just in that last year gone full time running the band and quit the job that I'd had. So it had to be self-employed for some amount of time to get help and all that. So it was very tricky, but it just starting it actually made me realize how I was building a new community within the sort of Patreon world, and I could show sides of what I was doing that I wouldn't necessarily be able to on social media, and actually, from everything from showing things early like music videos or songs, or sometimes alternative videos that never got released, um, songs that I wouldn't release, um, artwork ideas when I'm drafting them out. I have chats about things sometimes. I'll do rehearsals on there. It's a really personal kind of thing, and I never expected to enjoy it as much as I do, but I absolutely love it, and I'm really grateful for the people that helped to support me on there, especially as I'm basically the one who kind of does 95% of the jobs for the band. So I don't have time to do another job because I already work stupid hours trying to do all of those things because we're at the stage we're at. Um, and it all really helps. So yeah, if you guys would like to find out more about my Patreon, it's at Marisa Sings a Lot. um so that's my kind of singer name. I decided that my surname was too much for most people, so I was like, Marisa Sings a Lot kind of summarizes me. So
Does exactly what it says on the tin, doesn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. No, absolutely amazing. And yeah, my final message for the listeners today, obviously, is if you've got the ability to, pop along to a show, obviously come and see the band, follow obviously Marissa on social media, and if possible, obviously, yep, sign up for Patreon. There will be links in the bio of this episode, so listeners, you can click through and go and find these places, hopefully quite easily. So absolutely, it's a great time to jump on board with Marissa. Obviously, you've got so much in the pipeline, tease of new music as well. So there's definitely a lot to get invested in with Marissa and the Moths. So definitely, listeners, do that. That's my final message. I always give the final message though to the guests. So what would be your final message for the listeners today, Marissa?
Well, thank you so much for listening to me go on about lots of things. And if you like our music, I am very excited to let you guys know that we've got some stripped versions of our second album songs coming out shortly. And we touched on live versions of songs, and we're finally going to be releasing the Abbey Road live sessions that we did a few years ago now. But yeah, it was a very special event for us, and we are super excited to finally unleash that. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, and hopefully I will see you guys on the road in a few weeks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Marissa, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Marissa. The latest album from Marissa and the Moths, Whatever Doesn't Kill You, is out now. Do check that out. And of course, go and follow the band on social media so you can stay up to date with everything coming from them. While you're there, please do also follow Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. Finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.